Hello everyone, this section is all about inverse functions. So what's an inverse function? In very basic terms, inverse functions cancel each other. Like all functions, inverses are given three ways: numerically, algebraically, and graphically. We're going to talk about all three. F to the negative 1 of x does not mean f to the negative first power. It means f inverse of x, or the inverse of f of x. If you take nothing else from today, remember, inverse function means switch x and y. If I say inverse, that means switch x and y. Numerically it's very easy. Sometimes a function is given as a table. To find the inverse, switch the x's and the y's. So if this is my original table, how do I find the inverse? I switch x's and y's. That's really easy. Is the inverse still a function? Well, it's a function if x's don't repeat. Do any of the x's repeat? The x's don't repeat, so then yes, it's a function. Sometimes the function is written as a list of ordered pairs. This looks messy, but is still acceptable. So let's find the inverse of this guy. The inverse of 1, 4 is 4, 1. 8, negative 2. 8, negative 4. 6, 0. 10, negative 9. Is this guy a function? No. Since x equals 8 repeats. You can't repeat x values to have a function. So the original is a function, but the inverse isn't. Algebraically. If you're given a function algebraically and are asked to find the inverse, switch x and y and solve for y. The new answer is the inverse of the original function. So let's find the inverse of 3x minus 7. This is y equals 3x minus 7. So we're going to write it as x equals 3y minus 7. Solve for y equals x plus 7 equals 3y. X plus 7 over 3 is equal to y. Now let's write it correctly. F inverse of x equals x plus 7 over 3. So I solved for y. I switched x and y. I solved for y, and then I rewrote it as an inverse. How about this one? Find g inverse. Well, let's switch x and y. So x equals y plus 4 over 3. Multiply both sides by 3. I get 3x equals y plus 4. I get y equals 3x minus 4. So I really have g inverse of x equals 3x minus 4. Switch x and y, solve for y, write it as an inverse. If you take nothing from today, inverse means switch x and y. X equals y squared minus 7. X plus 7 equals y squared. Now here comes a hard part. How do I cancel out the squared? I take the square root. But when you take a square root of both sides, it's plus and minus. So what's my inverse? H inverse of x is plus or minus the square root of x plus 7. Because this is plus or minus, and it's really two functions, this is not a function. So this inverse is not a function. It still has an inverse, it's just not a function. Proving two functions are inverses. To prove two functions are inverses, we do the composition both ways. If you get x both times, the two functions are inverses. I did really easy ones here. Let's do f of g of x. That means plug g, x plus 3, into x. X plus 3 minus 3 equals x. We're good. Do it the other way. G of f of x. So I plug f, x minus 3, into g, and I get x. Since I get x both ways, and these two things are inverses. Obviously, you'll have much tougher problems to work with, but that's the basic idea. Show something inverse graphically. Usually you'll be asked to just identify or sketch the inverse of a function graphically, and there are two ways. You could pick some points, switch the x and y, and then plot the new points. Or you could draw a diagonal and flip the original graph over the line to get the inverse. Let me give you a really basic example. Here's a parabola. Okay? Here is the diagonal y equals x. If I flip that over that diagonal, I would get a parabola that looks like this. So the blue parabola and the red parabola are inverses of each other. What about if I give you a graph? Find f of 4. What does this mean? It means go to 4 and find the y value. What is the y value at 4? It's 4. How about f of negative 3? I go to negative 3 and I find the y value. It's 1/2. What about f inverse of 5? This means what x value has a y value of 5. So I go to the y value of 5 and look for the x value. It's 6. F inverse of 2. This means what x value has a y value of 2. So I go to a y value of 2 and I look at the x value. 0. If you take nothing else from today, remember that inverse means switch x and y and then solve for y. Have any questions? Come talk to me. Thanks, everyone.